Tetralogy of Fallot is a congenital heart defect consisting of four anatomical abnormalities. It occurs in approximately 1 in 2,500 live births, accounting for 5 to 7% of all congenital heart disease. It is slightly more common in males. About 15 to 20% of cases are associated with 22q11.2 deletion. Now let's go through the four anatomic components. First, a large unrestricted ventricular septal defect, often abbreviated as VSD, located in the outlet portion of the septum. Second, an overriding aorta, meaning the aorta sits directly above the VSD and receives blood from both ventricles. Third, right ventricular outflow tract obstruction, most often infundibular pulmonary stenosis, but it can also be valvular or supravalvular. The severity of this obstruction determines the clinical presentation. Fourth, right ventricular hypertrophy, which develops as a result of the chronic pressure overload from the obstruction. Now, let's talk about the pathophysiology. Because of the right ventricular outflow tract obstruction, blood flows from the right ventricle across the VSD into the aorta. This creates a right-to-left shunt, which causes cyanosis. The degree of shunting depends on the severity of the pulmonary stenosis. If the stenosis is mild, blood may still flow from left to right, resulting in an acyanotic patient, sometimes called pink tet. If the stenosis is severe, blood flows from right to left, causing cyanosis. Hypoxic spells, also called hypercyanotic spells or tet spells, are acute episodes of worsening cyanosis and rapid breathing triggered by crying, feeding, or exertion. The mechanism is infundibular spasm, which increases the obstruction and worsens the right-to-left shunt. Chronic low oxygen levels stimulate the production of erythropoietin, leading to polycythemia and increased blood viscosity. Digital clubbing also develops from chronic hypoxemia. Clinical presentation varies by age. In the neonatal period, cyanosis may be absent if the pulmonary stenosis is mild. However, severe obstruction presents with profound cyanosis shortly after birth, and these infants are ductus-dependent. In infancy, cyanosis becomes more noticeable with activity. On examination, you will hear a harsh systolic ejection murmur at the left upper sternal border from the pulmonary stenosis. The second heart sound is single because the pulmonic component is inaudible. You may notice that infants squat to relieve cyanosis. Squatting increases systemic vascular resistance, which reduces the right-to-left shunt. Hypercyanotic spells typically start around 2 to 4 months of age. The infant suddenly becomes irritable, deeply cyanotic, breathes rapidly, then becomes limp and may even lose consciousness. These spells can be life-threatening. Physical findings also include clubbing of the fingers and toes, growth retardation, and cyanosis of the nail beds and lips. For the diagnostic workup, pulse oximetry is used for newborn screening. You will see low pre-ductal and post-ductal saturations, often below 90%. However, mild cases may have normal saturations. A chest X-ray shows the characteristic boot-shaped heart. This happens because the cardiac apex is upturned from right ventricular hypertrophy, and the main pulmonary artery segment is concave. Pulmonary vascular markings are decreased. About 25 to 30% of patients have a right aortic arch. The electrocardiogram shows right axis deviation, typically between 100 and 180 degrees. Right ventricular hypertrophy appears as tall R waves in lead V1 and deep S waves in leads V5 and V6. Right atrial enlargement may also be present. The transthoracic echocardiogram is the diagnostic test of choice. It visualizes the VSD, its size and location, the degree of aortic override, the level of right ventricular outflow tract obstruction, the size of the pulmonary valve annulus, and the presence of right ventricular hypertrophy. It also assesses the branch pulmonary arteries for stenosis and measures the gradient across the outflow tract. Cardiac catheterization is indicated when echocardiography is inconclusive or before surgical repair. It measures right ventricular pressure, which is at systemic level, the pressure gradient across the outflow tract, and the pulmonary artery pressure. Angiography defines the coronary artery anatomy because an anomalous coronary artery crossing the right ventricular outflow tract can complicate surgery. Magnetic resonance imaging may be used for complex anatomy or to assess right ventricular volume and function after repair. Genetic testing with fluorescence in situ hybridization for the 22q11.2 deletion. Management and treatment begin with prostaglandin E1, also called alprostadil, for neonates with severe obstruction who are ductus dependent. The dose is 0.01 to 0.05 micrograms per kilogram per minute as a continuous intravenous infusion. This keeps the ductus arteriosus open, providing pulmonary blood flow until surgery can be performed. For hypercyanotic spells, immediate measures include placing the infant in a knee-chest position to increase systemic vascular resistance. Calm the infant and give oxygen, though oxygen helps little if the problem is limited pulmonary blood flow. Morphine at 0.1 mg per kilogram subcutaneously or intramuscularly suppresses the respiratory center and reduces infundibular spasm. For recurrent spells, intravenous propranolol can be given at 0.1 mg per kilogram slowly, or you can start oral propranolol at 1 to 3 milligrams per kilogram per day, divided every 6 hours, up to 5 milligrams per kilogram per day. Beta blockers reduce infundibular spasm. If the infant is hypovolemic, give normal saline 10 to 20 milliliters per kilogram intravenously. Phenylephrine, an alpha agonist, increases systemic vascular resistance. The dose is 2 to 5 micrograms per kilogram intravenously as a bolus or infusion, under close monitoring. If spells are refractory to medical therapy, emergency surgical repair is needed. Complete intracardiac repair is typically performed between 3 and 6 months of age. Earlier surgery is indicated for severe cyanosis or frequent spells. The procedure involves patch closure of the VSD, relief of the right ventricular outflow tract obstruction, by resecting infundibular muscle, performing a pulmonary valvotomy, and placing a transannular patch if the pulmonary valve annulus is small. A transannular patch often leads to long-term pulmonary regurgitation. After surgery, patients may need diuretics such as furosemide at 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram per dose every 8 to 12 hours intravenously or orally for right heart failure. Afterload reduction with captopril at 0.1 to 0.5 milligrams per kilogram per dose every 8 to 24 hours may be used if pulmonary regurgitation is severe. Antibiotic prophylaxis for dental procedures is recommended for 6 months after repair or indefinitely if there is a residual VSD or valvular disease. Palliative Blalock-Tausig shunts are rarely performed today, except in low-resource settings or for very small infants. Long-term follow-up is essential. Pulmonary regurgitation is the most common long-term issue after a transannular patch. It leads to right ventricular dilation and dysfunction, and pulmonary valve replacement may be needed when symptoms develop or right ventricular dilation is severe. Residual or recurrent obstruction may require balloon angioplasty or repeat surgery. Arrhythmias, including ventricular tachycardia from right ventricular scar, pose a risk of sudden death. Regular Holter monitoring is recommended. Aortic root dilation can occur and needs periodic echocardiographic surveillance. Endocarditis prophylaxis should follow current guidelines. Pregnancy in women with repaired Tetralogy of Fallot carries increased risk and requires specialized cardiology care. Prognosis without treatment is poor, 50% mortality by age 1 year and 90% by age 20 years. With surgical repair, survival to adulthood is 95 to 98%. Most patients lead normal lives with regular cardiology follow-up, though long-term issues may require reinterventions. In summary, Tetralogy of Fallot has 4 components: ventricular septal defect, overriding aorta, right ventricular outflow tract obstruction, and right ventricular hypertrophy. The severity of cyanosis depends on the degree of pulmonary stenosis. Hypercyanotic spells require immediate intervention with knee-chest position, morphine, and beta blockers. Diagnosis is made by echocardiography, and chest X-ray shows a boot-shaped heart. Complete surgical repair is performed between 3 and 6 months of age. Long-term complications include pulmonary regurgitation, arrhythmias, and aortic root dilation. With timely surgical correction, the prognosis is excellent. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one.